Hi, my name is Mikkel Sink. I'm a foundation student at Troy University in the Master's Program of Social Work. And here is my competency capstone project over all 9 competencies that I've used and learned professionally in my field placement at Hawthorne House located in Shalimar, Florida. Here's the CSWE history and a timeline of whenever it was early established. And it started in 1946. The foundation of the CSWE was established. Um, excuse me. And it was first established by AASSW in 1946. In 1951, the CSWE recognized that there were issues with accreditation and sought to have a sole body accredited, and that was the social work education for the council. In 1952, the CSWE was officially established for only the master level program, and then after 1974, the bachelor level for social work was officially accredited as well. Why is the CSWE important? The CSWE is important because it outlines professionalism across the board for all social workers, and that it is including in a bachelor and master level. It also enhances each competency by ethical and professional standards in which one would or should abide by and uphold in the workplace as a professional social worker. Per social work program, there are different levels of field practice needed, and that is listed below. The BSW, you need 400 hours in field experience. For the MSW program, you need 900. Competency 1, demonstrate ethical and professional behavior. It can be identified as one understanding and demonstrating professional behavior in the workplace. I'd like to think this is just defined as doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. With this competency, you're always empowering others to do what's best for them, and also having self-awareness that your personal values may not align with someone else's. And alongside of empowering ethical decision making, it's important to do so in a professional manner. Along with acting professional, that's also by how you talk, act, hold accountability, have high standards for your license, your degree, and you dress professionally. You can communicate effectively, and by communicating, that means phone, email, in person with others. And by meeting this competency, I'd like to think at Hawthorne House I was able to understand and demonstrate the mom rule. That's a 3-part rule, one strike you're out kind of deal. It's would you do this to your mom, for your mom, and would your mom approve? And Rachel has said many, many times that if she wouldn't let her mom stay here, then we're doing something wrong. So this facility has very high standards for ethically and professionally dealing with residents and communicating with them. Competency 2, engage diversity and difference in practice. Excuse me. Oh, goodness, where'd it go? There it is. It can be demonstrated by being self-aware that everyone around you is different. Some may have similarities, but totally different backgrounds. And it's important to be competent in realizing those differences in culture, background, age, abilities, disabilities, gender. And at Hawthorne House, I practice with diverse clients all the time. I had a lady from Great Britain that I did a biopsychosocial on. I helped accommodate a legally blind lady to and from activities, to her room, around her room, with pretty much anything she needed help with. And also, there is one and only one African American lady at Hawthorne House, which means she does talk about race all the time. She always has something to say. We just have to give her grace, um, and just have to let her know that we're not pointing fingers, and there's no need for her to point fingers. But it's one against many, and we have to realize that she is part of the minority, and I have to understand with cultural differences that we are different, and that does go into play with how I communicate with her effectively. Competency 3, advance human rights and social, economic, and environmental justice. It notates that each individual is entitled to their own basic rights, and that includes freedom, safety, privacy, standard of living in society. It's important for us to demonstrate our knowledge in the correct justice system, whether that be social, economical, or environmental, to prepare to advocate for any situation where an individual needs help. And at Hawthorne House, I was able to understand this competency by looking over forms going into evaluations. There's an 1823 form, which is a state physician form. And then there's also a service assessment form that lists all the services provided and the higher care in between, and lists a monetary value. And one thing I specifically remember for this competency is Rachel saying this resident is falling too much, and all the documentations are starting to fall into another bracket of payment. So, of course, the client has the right to fall, but due to policy and procedure, monetary value goes into that. So that more safety can be applied for that certain individual. Competency 4, engage in practice-informed research and research-informed practice. It illustrates the importance of using scientific research to produce ethical, professional, not only quantitative but qualitative research as well in practice. And I believe I've enjoyed this competency the most just because I thought I would want to work with kids, and I still may, but it's nice to see the full circle come around and adults just revert back to their childhood. So I had to learn ways, techniques, and resources that I could provide to them that weren't childlike, or they would probably be offended. So I looked up puzzles, word searches, color-affiliated games, word association techniques, and I also got with the recreational therapist who is very knowledgeable on researching adequate and effective practice for geriatrics. Competency 5, engage in policy practice, can be demonstrated by one, understanding rights and social justice on all three levels, the micro, macro, and meso. One who understands all these levels understand that an individual can be impacted by social services at a lower and higher level, so it's necessary to be knowledgeable in a way that we can advocate and implement knowledge on the matter of human rights and justice across the board on all three levels. And at Hawthorne House, this competency was shown to me when I evaluated residents and went to other facilities. For instance, Miss Peggy, she was a cognition rehab, cognition resident on the Azalea Hall, the memory care floor, and she went to an acute rehab facility after a hip surgery when really she needed long-term rehab care. So it was very, in my opinion, unethical that they sent a memory care resident to an acute service for rehab. But this was just one way that I could grasp that policy and procedures work even in ways that they shouldn't. Competency 6, engage with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. This competency outlines the importance of interaction and communication with other individuals and that it's unavoidable. During this career, we'll always be interacting, connecting, advocating, researching, providing services, resources, effective professional communication. Anyone who understands this competency knows that human behavior in all areas of the environment must be approached in a skillful manner that can show empathy, reflection, culture, competence, even when dealing with diverse residents, clients, patients. At Hawthorne House, I engage daily with others, whether it be staff members, residents, volunteers, people in the community, and around the residents. Understanding this competency means being reflective in a skillful way and actively listening and participating in conversation to show good intentions of trust and rapport. Competency 7 assesses individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. Can be demonstrated by simply observing. When you observe, you can gather data, use applied knowledge of human behavior. You can develop goals, objectives, plans, and appropriately implement them with critical thinking. With learned knowledge, research knowledge, personal values, and professional values. And at Hawthorne House, I've implemented this competency by observing other professionals in the workplace and observing residents in their own facility and facilitated with Rachel my findings. Competency 8, intervene with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. It outlines the importance of an ongoing interact role a social worker has in the community by intervening. A social worker will always be intervening, interacting, implementing goals and resources to implement the next goals. And at Hawthorne House, every Wednesday, we would always have third-party meetings that lets each director of the designated third party speak on behalf of the resident getting higher care needed. And I was able to demonstrate my learned findings from these resources and critically and competently analyze them and discuss with Rachel current plans, goals third party providers had with their residents. And competency 9, how you can evaluate practice with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. It simply demonstrates applied knowledge to evaluate outcomes and findings that involve analyzing and monitoring to improve practice effectively for goals and plans for all individuals, including the different levels, micro, meso, and macro. So once you evaluate the first time, you can implement, you can see where it goes, you can evaluate again, you can keep implementing until you get to your goal.